Here is something for you to think about. What if the bag of soil you just bought, the one that promised growth, life, better results, is the very reason your garden feels stuck? What if the problem is not your seeds, is not your watering, but what you trusted to be your foundation? Now I remember the first time I really questioned store-bought soil. Everything on the bag sounded right. Rich, balanced, perfect for vegetables. It looked like the answer, so I used it. Filled my beds, planted my crops, watered carefully, and waited. But something did not feel right. Growth was slow. Plants looked tired. The soil itself felt lifeless. It was not bad enough to fail completely, but it was not good enough to thrive. And that is what made it dangerous. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Because sometimes, the biggest problems in your garden do not come from what is obviously wrong. They come from what looks right, but is not alive. Now let me ask you, have you ever used store-bought soil and expected more from it than what you got? Drop that in the comments. Because what you are about to see is something most people never question. And once you see it, you will never look at that bag the same way again. And here is the first truth most people never hear about store-bought soil. It often looks alive, but it is not. Now that may sound surprising, because when you open that bag, you see dark material. You feel something soft. It smells like soil, but real living soil is more than appearance. It is active. It has movement beneath the surface, microbes working, breaking things down, releasing nutrients. A system that is constantly in motion, but many store-bought soils, they have been sitting in bags, sometimes for months. No fresh inputs, no real biological activity, just material, waiting. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now think about what that means. You plant into it, expecting life to support your plants, but instead, your plants are the ones trying to bring life back into it, and that is a heavy job. Now let me give you a simple picture. Two growers. The first uses bagged soil straight from the store. They plant immediately, water, wait. Growth begins, but it is slow, uneven, lacking energy. The second takes that same soil, but understands something different. They do not treat it as finished. They treat it as a starting point. They activate it. They add moisture properly, introduce organic matter, give it time to wake up. And when they plant, the soil is already beginning to respond. Same product, different outcome. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever planted into new soil and felt like it took too long for things to get going? That is often not your fault. That is the soil trying to come back to life. Now here is where it gets even more important, because lack of life is only part of the story. There is another truth about store-bought soil that can quietly hold your plants back, even if everything else seems right. And that second truth is something you do not see on the label. Because most store-bought soils are built to be light and easy to handle, not necessarily to support long-term growth. Now at first, that light texture feels good. It drains quickly. It is easy to plant in. Roots can move at the beginning. But over time, something starts to change. That same soil begins to break down. It compacts. It loses structure. It stops holding moisture the way it should. And suddenly, what once felt loose becomes inconsistent. Too dry one day, too heavy the next. And your plants feel every bit of it. Healthy soil, wealthy foods. Health, strength, stability. Now let me give you a picture again. 1. Grower uses store-bought soil and leaves it as is. At first, things grow. But as weeks pass, watering becomes unpredictable. Roots struggle to stay consistent. Growth begins to slow. The second grower understands something different. They do not rely on the bag to do everything. They build on it. They add structure, organic matter that holds shape. They protect the surface with mulch. They allow the soil to evolve, not break down. And over time, their soil becomes stronger, while the other begins to weaken. Same starting point, different direction. Now let me ask you, have you ever felt like your soil started off good, but did not stay that way? Because that is one of the hidden challenges. Store-bought soil is often designed for short-term performance, not long-term stability. Now here is where it becomes even more important, because there is one more truth that most people do not even consider. And once you see it, you will understand why so many gardens never reach their full potential. And that final truth is something that most people never even think to question. Because it is not about what is missing, it is about what might be there. That should not be. Now, not every bag of store-bought soil has this issue, but enough do, that it matters. Because some soils can carry residual chemicals, salts, or imbalances from the materials used to make them. Things you cannot see, things you cannot smell, but things your plants can feel. Now, this does not always show up right away. At first, plants may grow, but over time, you begin to notice something. Edges of leaves start to burn, growth becomes uneven, plants seem sensitive, reactive, like something is slightly off. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now let me give you that picture again. One grower trusts the bag completely. They use it as is, no adjustment, no observation. And when problems show up, they do not know where they came from. So they try to fix things from the outside. More water, more inputs, more adjustments. But the foundation remains the same. Now the second grower takes a different approach. They do not assume the soil is perfect. They test it. They observe. They build on it. They dilute it with natural soil, balance it with organic matter, and give it time to stabilize. And over time, their soil becomes more predictable, more reliable, more alive. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were doing everything right, but something still did not feel quite right in your soil? That is often not your skill. That is your foundation. Now we are coming into the final part of this. Because once you understand these truths, lack of life, weak structure, hidden imbalances, you begin to see how to actually use store-bought soil the right way. Not as a finished product, but as a beginning. And this is where everything begins to come together. Because now you can see it clearly. Store-bought soil is not the answer. It is the starting point. And once you understand that, everything changes. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now picture those two people one last time. The first person continues to trust the bag, that plant directly into it, expect it to perform, and when things do not go right, they keep trying to fix it from the outside. But the soil never truly becomes what they need it to be. So every season feels like starting over. Now the second person sees something different. They do not reject store-bought soil, but they do not rely on it either. They build on it. They bring life into it. Through moisture, through organic matter, through time and observation. They strengthen its structure. They protect it. They allow it to evolve. And over time, that soil becomes something entirely different. Not just a product, but a living system. And that is when the real shift happens. Because now, they are not just planting, they are producing. Food that grows with strength. Food that lasts longer. Food that begins to reduce dependence on the store. That is what wealthy food looks like. Now let me ask you one last question. The next time you open a bag of soil, will you treat it like the final step or the first step? Because that decision will shape everything that grows from it. And the truth is, the soil beneath your feet, even if it starts in a bag, is capable of becoming something far greater. But only if you bring it to life. Because when knowledge meets living soil, abundance appears. And before you move on from this, there is one more thing I want you to understand. Because once you see store-bought soil for what it really is, you stop depending on it, and you start transforming it. Now this is where most people either stay stuck or begin to move forward. Because it is easy to believe that better results come from buying something better, a different brand, a richer mix, a higher price. But the truth is, real improvement does not come from the bag. It comes from what you build after the bag. Healthy soil, wealthy foods, health, strength, stability. Now let me give you that final picture. Two people, same store, same soil, same starting point. The first person keeps searching for the perfect bag, hoping the next one will fix everything. But every season, they are still chasing results, still adjusting, still correcting, still unsure. Now the second person stops searching and starts building. They take what they have and turn it into something living. They keep the soil covered. They feed it lightly over time. They protect its structure. They let life return. And over time, something powerful begins to happen. The soil becomes easier to work, more responsive, more consistent. And that is when gardening changes. Because now, they are not relying on products. They are relying on understanding. Now let me ask you one final question. Are you still looking for the perfect soil, or are you ready to build it? Because the moment you make that shift, everything changes. And the truth is, the soil beneath your feet, even if it starts in a bag, can become one of the most valuable things in your life. Because when you build living soil, you do not just grow plants, you grow stability, strength, and a future you can rely on. Because when knowledge meets living soil, abundance appears. Remember, wealthy foods lead to health, strength, and peace of mind. Thank you for watching, and do not forget to subscribe for more practical wisdom and simple methods to help you grow abundance right where you are. Until next time, keep growing.